Hi, folks, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Racing Show here at RacePlazaMedia. Today, I want to talk to you guys about the darkest and deadliest weekend in Formula One history. Of course, we are all aware of the legendary Ayrton Senna, who unfortunately passed away on May 1st in 1994. However, he was not the only death that happened that weekend, and there were additional injuries and accidents throughout the whole entire weekend. So, let's just get right into it. It is April 29th, 1994. We're in Imola, Italy, at the Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari. It is Friday, the race weekend is just only starting, and we have our first big accident of the weekend. Brazilian Motorsports racing driver Rubens Barrichello clipped the curb and crashed into the barriers at 225 kilometers per hour. FIA doctor Sid Watkins took care of Rubens Barrichello right on site because his tongue was blocking his airways and he was unconscious. Not only was Sid Watkins at site with him, but Ayrton Senna pulled over his Williams car to attend to Rubens Barrichello on site. Eventually, Rubens regained consciousness. He ended up suffering a broken nose as well as a sprained wrist. So unfortunately, he was unable to continue racing the entire weekend. And unfortunately, things only got worse that weekend. On Saturday, April 30th, during the second qualifying session, Roland Ratzenberger, the Austrian driver, crashed into a wall as well. Ratzenberger had just started his F1 career at an unusual age of 33. He joined the Simtech team in 1994, and that weekend was supposed to be his third race in his Formula One career. Unfortunately, due to a suspected front wing failure, he crashed into the wall outside the Villeneuve curve at 314 kilometers per hour, so about another 100 kilometers faster than Rubens Barrichello just the day before. This time, yet again, Senna was on site of the accident. He wasn't on track during that time of the qualifying session, so he got into a track car, drove it to the accident site to attend to Ratzenberger on scene. Senna and FIA doctor Sid Watkins both accompanied Roland Ratzenberger to the hospital, where later he was announced dead. When leaving the hospital together, Senna and Sid Watkins had a conversation, and Sid suggested to Senna to take the race weekend off to join him fishing. However, Senna said he couldn't stop racing. Senna did, however, decide not to take part in the remainder of the qualifying session, as well as he didn't participate in the post-qualifying press conference. The open grid position of Roland Ratzenberger was offered to Paul Belmondo. However, he declined stepping in for the deceased driver because he said, one, he wanted to honor Ratzenberger, and then second, he said he didn't earn the spot. Sunday, May 1st. During the warm-up sessions on that Sunday morning, Senna was the fastest driver on the grid by 0.9 seconds. That morning, he also got together with other drivers in an attempt to re-establish the Grand Prix Drivers Association, an association meant to protect drivers and spectators by improving safety provisions in F1. Senna even offered to become the head of the GPDA, starting the following race in Monaco. As the race started that Sunday morning, things immediately went from bad to worse. Unfortunately, right at the starting grid, as the lights turned green, one of the Benetton cars stalled and a Lotus driver crashed into the back of the Benetton vehicle due to obstructed vision from other cars. Due to the crash, lots of debris flew all over the track, including over the fence that was there to protect spectators. However, 8 spectators and a police officer suffered minor injuries from the flying debris from that crash. Although the incident happened right at the beginning of the race, the stewards decided to continue on with the race and just deployed the safety car. However, there was already a lot of discussion happening about the safety cars that weekend. The safety cars were just reintroduced into Formula One that season, and Ayrton Senna had already spoken out about safety cars. For one, that weekend's safety car was an Opel vehicle, a family car, so not a track car at all. So they were complaining about the limited speeds available to the safety cars, so that if the safety car, and when it is deployed, it won't be able to drive fast enough on the track due to the lack of speed and handling for the F1 cars behind it to maintain tire temperature. While the safety car was deployed on the track for 5 laps, Ayrton Senna repeatedly drove up to the safety car, motioning to it to ramp up its speed to ensure the tire temperature of the drivers. However, even the safety car driver said that the safety car was not appropriate for the track. One, due to, as mentioned, the lack of speed and handling, and also because apparently just on the first lap out on the track, the brakes overheated, which made him reduce his speed even more. And then, believe it or not, during the laps of the safety car, 2 other cars managed to drive into each other. Nothing bad happened, luckily, this time. However, it just continued the bad luck streak of that weekend. After 5 laps of safety car, Ayrton Senna was in the front with Michael Schumacher right behind him. Once the safety car left the track, racing resumed. However, unfortunately, not for much longer. During the next lap, spectators were left to watch Ayrton Senna's Williams crash straight in an unprotected concrete barrier. According to data, it shows that Ayrton Senna had entered the corner at 309 kilometers per hour. He quickly stepped on the brake, downshifted twice, and ended up hitting the wall at 211 kilometers per hour. The impact tore off the front right wheel as well as the nose cone before the vehicle came to a halt with a motionless Ayrton Senna in the car. However, a slight head movement gave fans some hope that hopefully the driver was indeed okay. 3 major injuries happened to Ayrton Senna during that impact, and doctors said any of those 3 could have been deadly to the driver. The first one is the front right tire came off the vehicle, hit Senna against his helmet, which catapulted his helmet into the back of the seat, which caused a fracture in the back of his skull. The second is that a piece of the suspension penetrated his helmet, which also caused another head trauma. And the third is that a jagged piece from his upright assembly penetrated his helmet just right above the right eye, which also caused additional head trauma. The fire marshals were the first on site. However, they had to wait a couple minutes for medical staff to arrive. They secured Senna and then transported him via helicopter to the hospital. At 3 p.m. local time, his heart stopped. However, they tried to reanimate him, and then at 6:37 p.m. was the official announcement of Ayrton Senna's death. His official time of death is 3 p.m. local time. Ayrton Senna was a Brazilian race car driver who won the Formula One World Championship 3 times in 1988, 1990, and 1991. He is still celebrated as one of the greatest, and he is an idol to many of the current F1 drivers. Later on, we found out that Ayrton Senna had an Austrian flag curled up in his cockpit beside him because he had intended to raise the Austrian flag at the end of the race in honor of Roland Ratzenberger. This year, 2024, marks the 30th anniversary of the death of Ayrton Senna as well as Roland Ratzenberger. As you know now, lots of unfortunate things happened that weekend, including many injuries and, of course, the 2 fatalities. Those 2 deaths were the first one in F1 since 1982. Luckily, many more years passed until we had another Formula One death by driver Jules Bianchi, who passed away in 2015 due to injuries sustained at the 2014 Japanese Grand Prix. However, we did lose 3 trackside marshals in the years in between, one in 2000, one in 2001, and then the last one in 2013. Many things, of course, have changed since the death of Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger, especially in terms of safety, including, as we now know, the big hero of the halo has been implemented into the F1 cars just a couple years ago. But even that same year in 1994, remember, as I mentioned, that Ayrton Senna wanted to reintroduce the Grand Prix Driver Association. So that indeed still happened for the Monaco Grand Prix. Retired driver at the time, Niki Lauda, ended up leading the pack, along with Schumacher, Berger, and Martin Brundle, who all took charge of reintroducing the Grand Prix Driver Association. They immediately jumped into action and changed things for that same year's Spanish as well as Canada Grand Prix, including redesigning the tracks, adding additional barriers, and demanding higher safety standards for the track, for the safety of the drivers as well as the spectators. Ayrton Senna's death was considered a national tragedy in Brazil, his home country, and they announced 3 days of mourning. There are varying numbers out there, anywhere from 500,000 to 3 million people attended the funeral. After Senna's death, 6 people were charged by Italian prosecutors with manslaughter in connection with Senna's death. Over many, many years, it took officially 11 years of trials, retrials, appeals. However, all 6 people were later acquitted. One of the people I just want to point out, just because he is still currently around, is Adrian Newey. Back then, he was working for Williams. He was one of the people charged with manslaughter. Ayrton Senna's death was deemed an accident due to the steering column breaking. And later on, we found out that Ayrton Senna indeed himself requested for the steering column to be cut and welded back together for the car to be more comfortable for him. I know there's some speculation or conspiracy out there that Ayrton Senna might have driven into the wall himself because there was no other way that he would have ever stopped racing than succumbing to racing itself. However, on the other hand, we now know that Ayrton Senna was indeed planning on re-establishing the GPDA, so there was still more reason for him to live, and then as well more races for him to win. The weekend of May 1st, 1994 is truly the darkest and deadliest weekend in Formula One history. We lost Ayrton Senna, we lost Roland Ratzenberger, and many, many more people were injured during that very tragic weekend. This is all the information that I have for you guys for today. I thank you guys for tuning in. I know this was a little bit a different video than what we usually do, but I also think it's very important to remember the ones that we lost. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys here again tomorrow at the Daily Racing Show. Bye-bye.